This is a story you'll definitely want to hear to the very end. Chapter 1: The Confession. My home smells of apple pie and freshly brewed coffee. Through the perfectly clean window, I watch my husband, Mark, push our 8-year-old son, Leo, on the swing. Their laughter is the soundtrack to my happiness, a melody I am terrified of losing. From the outside, my life is a flawless painting rendered in pastels, a loving husband, a smart and handsome son, a cozy suburban home, an expensive car in the garage. I, Emily, am the mistress of this little paradise, always smiling, always open. But behind this pastel veneer hides a dirty sketch scratched in charcoal that I conceal even from myself. And today, that sketch has started to bleed. On my phone, there is a single message, just 3 words. I know everything. And I realize that my paradise is standing on the edge of a cliff. The only person who can save me is Chloe, my friend, my guardian angel, my eternal IOU. She sits across from me in my kitchen, stirring her cold tea with a small spoon, watching me with her dark, impenetrable eyes. She was always like that, quiet, observant, as if she knew more about the world than anyone else. We've been friends for 20 years, ever since the day she pulled me from the icy water. Literally, a college hiking trip, a failed jump from a rope swing, a frigid river that seized my lungs with terror. All I remember is murky water, the fading sun, and then her face, her hands, pulling me onto the bank. She saved me while others stood frozen in fear. From that day on, I have owed her my life. I have always remembered that, always tried to pay my dues. I helped her find a job when she was laid off. I gave her all my savings when her mother was diagnosed with cancer. I was by her side through her difficult divorce. I always felt it wasn't enough, that such a debt could never be repaid with money or favors. Chloe, I need to tell you something. My voice trembles, and I clutch the cold cup in my hands. Something terrible, something no one knows. She nods, her expression unchanging. Her calmness always had a soothing effect on me, but today it's terrifying. Do you remember Julian? I whisper. She flinches so subtly that I might have missed it if I weren't watching her so closely. Julian, her first tragic love. An artist, a poet, a tormentor. He had appeared in our lives during our last year of university, swept her off her feet, and then shattered her heart and disappeared, leaving Chloe with nothing but ruins inside. It took her years to piece herself back together. What does he have to do with this? Her voice is even, almost indifferent. 9 years ago, I forced myself to speak, the words scratching my throat. I ran into him in New York. By chance, I was on a business trip. Mark had just proposed to me. I was so happy, but I was drunk on that happiness, on wine, on life. And Julian, he was the same as before, charming, devilishly persuasive. He talked about you, about how much he regretted everything. We spent one night together. Just one night, Chloe. I swear, I hated myself the next morning. I came home, married Mark, and tried to forget it like a bad dream. And 9 months later, Leo was born. The silence in the kitchen becomes deafening. Chloe looks at me, and I no longer see sympathy in her eyes. I see something else, something dark and cold, like that river water. I hold out my phone with the message. Here, I whisper. This came today. I don't know who it is. Maybe it's him, Julian? Does he want money? He'll destroy my life, Chloe. Mark, he won't forgive me. He adores Leo. He believes he's his own flesh and blood. This will kill him. It will kill all of us. I'm crying now, no longer hiding my tears. I have exposed my most rotten, terrifying secret, my mortal sin. I have placed my heart, my family, my life in her hands, in the hands of the woman to whom I owed everything. I expected her to hug me, to say we would figure something out, as she always did. But she just stood up, walked to the window, and stared at Mark and Leo for a long time. Then she turned around, a strange, frightening smile playing on her lips. "Don't worry, Emily," she said quietly. "I'll take care of everything." And in that moment, I knew I had made the most terrible mistake of my life. Chapter 2: The Betrayal. Everything inside Chloe was singing. It wasn't malice, no. It was a sense of a higher, twisted justice she had waited so long for. For 20 years, she had lived with this wound. Julian wasn't just her first love. He was her world, her heir, her future. When he left, she stopped breathing. And all those years, Emily had been by her side, caring, sympathetic, the perfect friend. She had comforted her, wiped her tears, told her she deserved better, all while carrying his child, the child of the man who had destroyed her, Chloe. The realization was like a bolt of lightning. Their entire friendship, Emily's lifelong debt, all her devotion, it was all a farce. A lie built on the foundation of her, Chloe. When Emily handed her the phone with the message, "I know everything," Chloe barely suppressed a laugh. She had sent that message herself, from a burner phone bought with her last few dollars. It was the first move in her game, a perfectly calculated move. She knew Emily better than anyone. She knew that once trapped, Emily would run straight to her savior, and she would confess everything. The plan formed instantly, cold and sharp as a shard of ice. She wasn't going to destroy Emily's life overnight. Oh no, that would be too simple, too merciful. She wanted Emily to go through the same hell of slow decay that she had endured. Her revenge began with small things. "I spoke to a friend at the police department," she lied to Emily the next day. "He said it's probably just a scammer. Don't reply, don't react, we'll just watch." She calmed Emily, lulled her fears, and began weaving her web. First, she accidentally ran into Mark near his office. "Mark, hi, what a coincidence. I was just in the neighborhood. Thought I'd check out that gallery. I heard there's an exhibition by some avant-garde artist. You don't happen to know a Julian Croft, do you?" She dropped Julian's name as casually as if she were talking about the weather. Mark, of course, said he didn't. "That's strange," Chloe mused. "I thought Emily mentioned him once. A very talented artist, they say. He has such eyes, just like Leo's, that unusual shade of gray-green." She planted the seed of doubt and left, leaving Mark puzzled. The next step was Leo. She knew the boy had a severe nut allergy, life-threatening. Coming over for a visit, she brought a cake. "Emily, this is my specialty, carrot cake. I baked it just for you." She knew that Emily, consumed by her fear, would be inattentive, and she was right. Emily distractedly thanked her and put the cake on the table. And Chloe, while playing with Leo, said, "Leo, want to know a secret? This cake has magic walnuts in it, but they're ground up so tiny that your mom won't even notice." She watched as the boy curiously reached for a slice. She wasn't a monster. She had calculated everything. She knew Mark always carried an EpiPen and that the ambulance would be there in 7 minutes. She didn't want the child's death. She wanted something else. When Leo had his attack, Everything happened exactly as she had planned. The panic, Emily's screams, Mark's quick and skillful actions, the wail of the siren. When it was over and the pale but living boy was taken away by the paramedics, Mark turned to Emily. His face was white with fury. "How could you?" he yelled. "You know about his allergy. Have you completely lost your mind? What have you been thinking about lately?" Emily stammered something about not knowing there were nuts in the cake. "Chloe said it was carrot cake," she cried. Mark looked at Chloe, who was standing in the corner with a face full of sorrow and sympathy. "What does Chloe have to do with this?" he snarled. "He's your son, your responsibility." Chloe saw the first crack run through their perfect marriage. She walked over to the sobbing Emily and hugged her. "Shh, honey, it's okay," she whispered. "It's just stress. Mark didn't mean it. Everything will be okay." Emily clung to her like a life raft, not understanding that the raft was made of stone and was dragging her to the bottom. Revenge was sweet, like that carrot cake with the aftertaste of bitter almonds. And this was only the beginning. Chloe knew that soon she would make Mark ask the main question. The question about the gray-green eyes. Chapter 3. The Destruction. Emily's world didn't collapse all at once, but slowly, painfully, like an old house being dismantled brick by brick. Mark became a stranger. He no longer laughed while pushing Leo on the swings. He looked at his son with an anxiety and suspicion that chilled Emily to the bone, as if seeing him for the first time. He started asking questions, innocent at first glance, but each one was like the stab of a red-hot needle for Emily. "Listen, who in your family had eyes like that? Gray-green? Everyone on our side is either blue-eyed or brown-eyed. Do you remember where we were exactly 9 months before Leo was born? I was trying to remember. I think you went on a business trip to New York." Emily lied, clumsily, getting tangled in dates and events. Each lie spawned another, and soon she was caught in them like a sticky web. She lived in constant fear. Every phone call made her jump. She stopped sleeping, lost weight, and became a shadow of her former self. And Chloe was always there. She would bring over containers of home-cooked food, force Emily to eat, listen to her rambling stories about Mark's growing distance, and shake her head with an expression of infinite sympathy. "Be patient, honey," she would say. "Men can be like that sometimes. He was just scared for Leo. It will pass." But it didn't pass. Chloe continued her game. One day, while Mark was home, she called Emily. "Emily, I was just going through some old things and found photos from your bachelorette party. Remember that funny dancer we had? What was his name? I think it was Julian? You know, he looks so much like our Leo. I'm looking at the picture now. They're identical." She knew Mark could hear the conversation. She knew the name Julian, spoken for the third time, would be the detonator. And it was. That evening, Mark sat across from Emily. He didn't shout. He spoke quietly, which was even more terrifying. "I did some research, Emily. I found that artist, Julian Croft. I looked at his photos. And then I did a DNA test. I took a few of Leo's hairs from his brush. The results came in today." Emily stared at him, unable to utter a word. The air had run out. Her perfect world, her pastel painting, her home that smelled of apple pie, it all crumbled in an instant. All that remained were the ruins and a deafening silence. Mark didn't make a scene. He simply packed a bag and left. He only said that he would continue to support Leo because the boy wasn't to blame for anything. But with her, with Emily, it was over. She hadn't just betrayed him. She had betrayed their love, their trust, their 8 years of happiness, which had all turned out to be a lie. Left alone in the empty, echoing house, Emily felt not grief, but relief. A terrible, unnatural relief. No more lies, no more fear. The worst had already happened. And then relief gave way to fury, a blind, all-consuming fury directed at the one person who knew her secret, at Chloe. She called her, screaming incoherent accusations into the phone, and Chloe calmly replied, "Come over, we need to talk." Emily went. She wanted to look that woman in the eyes of her savior who had just drowned her. She burst into Chloe's small, modest apartment like a storm. "Why?" she screamed, waving her arms. "Why did you do this? I trusted you. I loved you like a sister. I owed you my life." Chloe stood by the window, her back to her. She didn't turn around. "Owed me your life?" she asked quietly. "Are you talking about?" Emily gasped. "You pulled me out of the river. Everyone saw it." Chloe turned slowly. There was no anger or triumph on her face, only an endless, scorched desert of pain. "Yes, I pulled you out of the river," she said. "But who pushed you off that damned bridge, Emily?" Chapter 4. The Second Confession. Chloe's question hung in the air, dense and heavy as a tombstone. Emily's breath caught in her throat. What are you talking about? I jumped myself. The rope swing broke. Everyone saw it," she stammered. But her own voice sounded uncertain. Deep in her memory, beneath the layers of gratitude and guilt, something else stirred. A memory she had buried alive for 20 years. "Stop lying, Emily." Chloe's voice was as steady and merciless as a surgeon's scalpel. "At least now, at least to yourself. The rope didn't break. I saw it. You unclipped the carabiner yourself." Chloe took a step forward, and Emily instinctively backed away. "You don't even remember why you did it, do you? But I do. I remember everything. An hour before that, we were sitting by the campfire, me, you, and Julian. He had just told me he loved me and wanted me to leave with him. And you sat there, watching him, the same way you would later watch Mark, like a starving she-wolf. You decided that if you couldn't have him, then no one could. So you decided to put on a show." The memories flooded Emily in an icy torrent, the same one she had been pulled from years ago. The campfire, Chloe's happy face, Julian's gaze, which had flickered over her, Emily, with a fleeting interest she had mistaken for something more. A burning, ugly jealousy. The thought that flashed through her mind, what if? She hadn't wanted to die. She had wanted attention. She wanted him, Julian, to rush to her rescue, to be her hero, stealing him away from her friend. The plan was foolish, infantile, born of jealousy and egoism. She would unclip the carabiner, fall into the water near the bank where it was shallow. Everyone would rush to help. She would be soaked, miserable, but at the center of everyone's attention, the heroine of a small drama. "But you miscalculated," Chloe continued, as if reading her thoughts. "The current was stronger than you thought. It pulled you into the deep. You panicked. And while everyone, including your adored Julian, stood on the shore with their mouths open, I was the one who jumped in. Stupid, naive Chloe, who thought she was saving her best friend from a tragic accident." Emily collapsed onto a chair, burying her face in her hands. It was all true, every word. Her tragic accident was just a poorly staged performance. I didn't mean to. I wasn't thinking," she whispered. "You never think." For the first time, a sharp edge entered Chloe's voice. "You weren't thinking then, and you weren't thinking when you slept with Julian. Do you have any idea what I felt when he disappeared the day after swearing he loved me? He just vanished. I thought I was going insane. I looked for him, called him, and he ran away. Do you know why? Because he was scared, not of you, but of himself. He told me years later when we met by chance. He said that if he could so easily give in to a moment's impulse with the best friend of the woman he loved, then he didn't deserve me. Your selfish act didn't just almost end your life, it destroyed mine. You took him from me then by that campfire. And then you took him from me again for good. And you had his child, a child you paraded in front of me, knowing how much I was suffering. This was the second confession, Emily's confession, but spoken by closed lips. Her entire life, built on a foundation of guilt and gratitude, turned out to be an even bigger lie than she had imagined. She wasn't a debtor. She was a criminal. Her lifelong debt wasn't payment for being saved. It was an attempt to buy the silence of her own conscience. Her entire friendship, all her help for Chloe, it was all a selfish desire to atone for her old, ugly sin. She looked at Chloe, at the woman whose life she had broken twice, and realized that the revenge Chloe had exacted was, if anything, merciful. She deserved far worse. "I'm sorry," Emily whispered. They were the only words she could manage. 2 simple words that weighed more than 20 years of lies. Chapter 5: The Bitter Reconciliation. The words, "I'm sorry," hung in the stale air of the apartment. They brought no relief, healed no old wounds. They simply stated a fact. Both women were standing on ruins, and they themselves had laid the foundation. Emily, with her egoism and cowardice. Chloe, with her years of resentment and cruel revenge. Now, all the masks were off. There was no longer a savior or a saved. There was no betrayer and victim. There were only 2 women mired in lies. "Your apology changes nothing," Chloe said quietly, sitting down across from her. The fury was gone, replaced by a bottomless exhaustion. "It won't bring Julian back. It won't bring Mark back to you." "I know," Emily replied, just as quietly. "But you should have told me sooner. Why were you silent all these years?" Chloe gave a bitter smile. "And what was I supposed to say? Emily, you're an ungrateful egoist who nearly drowned because of your own stupidity, and now I have to live with it? You turned me into a saint, a hero, and God help me, I liked playing that role. It gave me power over you. It was my small, secret comfort. Every time you thanked me, every time you said you owed me your life, I felt strong. But in reality, I was just as weak and scared as you were." They sat in silence, and this silence was more honest than any words they had spoken in the last 20 years. For the first time, they were equals. There were no more debts or obligations. Their balance sheet had been zeroed out, but that zero was a scorched desert. "What now?" Emily asked, staring into the void. The question wasn't about husbands or children. It was about the 2 of them. What remains of a friendship when you strip away all the truth and lies it was built upon? "Now, nothing," Chloe answered. "Our friendship is gone, Emily. It never really existed. It was a deal we both made with ourselves. You were paying for your guilt, and I was feeding on your sense of debt. We're finished." It was brutal, but it was the truth. Emily felt something inside her finally break, but with the pain came a strange, bitter sense of freedom. The weight she had carried for 20 years was gone. Yes, it left ruins in its place, but it was easier to breathe. Emily stood up. "I have to go," she said. "I need to talk to Leo and to Mark, not to ask for forgiveness, but just to tell the truth, the whole truth. He deserves to know it." She looked at Chloe. And you probably should too. Tell him that Leo is Julian's son, not to cause pain, but to close this story for yourself. Chloe nodded. It was the only right way forward. At the door, Emily turned back. Chloe, despite everything, thank you. Chloe raised her eyebrows in surprise. For what? She asked. For destroying my lie, Emily replied. I could never have done it myself. I would have lived my whole life in that beautiful fake house, suffocating from fear. You set me free. For the first time in a long while, something like surprise flickered across Chloe's face. She hadn't thought of it that way. They didn't hug goodbye. They didn't promise to call. They just looked at each other. Two women whose lives had been mangled by lies, but who now had a chance to start over. Perhaps they would never be friends again. Their history was too poisoned. But in that moment, standing on the threshold, they made a new, unspoken agreement. An agreement to live in truth, no matter how bitter or destructive it might be. And that was the most valuable thing left of their dead friendship. It was their bitter, hard-won reconciliation. Not with each other, but with themselves. If you enjoyed the story, subscribe to the channel, and you'll hear even more captivating tales.